Hi guys, and welcome after a kind of longer absence of mine to episode 5 of Hunts the Great on different stakes in network. And this episode is going to be, and the next two episodes as well, are going to be on the Microgaming network. We're going to start off today by playing NL4. But there is some news actually, and that's the fact that this time and next two episodes I'm actually not going to be playing. In this video, I'm going to review some footage that one of the winners of my contest on the Best Poker Coaching forums um, has sent me. And if you want to take part in the next future contest, where I'll be looking for people to join my video series, just go on bestpokercoaching.com, register, and be part of the best poker community out there. Anyway, he sent me some footage and I'm going to review. Instead, the next two videos are going to be live play, where I'm going to be sweating two other winners of the contest. So, three people who got coaching with me. Next time, it can be you. Just, as I said, join bestpokercoaching.com. Anyway, before we actually move in the footage and I comment on his play, I would like to shortly present to you the Microgaming network. So we're talking here about a very long existing poker network. I mean, I started playing in poker I think 2007, 2008, and as far as I can recall, Microgaming network was there. And my pretty big advice is that you typically should be playing, if you're playing on the Microgaming network, through sport betting sites, because some of them are have like a reputation in the sport betting industry, and personally I never had any bad experience with them. I can just recommend. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's like BetSong, 24-hour poker, or like whatever it is that you're using. If you're playing on the Microgaming network, I typically advise sport betting. As I said, I had never bad experience, and cash outs flow without any problems. Anyway, as any networks, it's important that I list pros and cons, which I believe the first pro I believe is important to me, and I believe to most players as well, is the software. I think the software did, of course, improve. I was like very surprised when I see the footage and had live coachings, but I still believe the software is very, very good. It's very stable. It's of course kind of like a preference thing. What somebody sees as nice, others may not. So it's kind of like personal, subjective to a certain degree. But I believe that, in my opinion, for me as a, let's call it poker player, for me it's important that it's stable, doesn't crush, and has somewhat kind of like nice overview, and typically, generally speaking, good looking. And I believe, in my experience, in my opinion, it's just better than, for example, iPoker. Of course, it's like not top notch, like I don't know, Poker Stars or like Full Tilt, but as I said, iPoker is, in my opinion, a worse software than Microgaming. Another important thing, I believe it has a perfect ratio between Rakeback, the fish, the recreational player, and the field. I mean by that the competition level that you can find by playing on the Microgaming network. First of all, one right below it's actually listed, you get instant rakeback paid. I mean, you get typically 30% flat if you sign up to Best Poker Coaching, or you get 30% flat, and you can just convert the points on the exact same day into this 30% rakeback. So you actually, on the same day, you just have your grind day, and you can just pay out your rakeback right daily if you want. It's not like on some sites you get monthly, weekly, bi-weekly, or whatever it is, like VIP scheme or whatever. Here you just play your day, you can cash out your rakeback, which is awesome. I personally believe it's awesome. You can just grind, okay, this day I need like $20. I have to sit down, play, rake this $20, and I can cash it out instantly. Another nice fact which adds to the 30% is typically the reload bonuses. They mostly clear up to 25%, so overall the overall rakeback increases to 40 up until 50%, which is, in my opinion, for a microstakes player, depending how much of course you can clear off the bonus, it's just awesome. I mean, PokerStars doesn't give away to microstakes player that much. So that being said, I think it's just very, very good. The field is not as tough as the PokerStars and iPoker, and there's still some fish. There are still some fishes that you're gonna be kind of like using your edge against and trying to make money in it. I also believe it has a very decent support, and I personally always love when a PokerStars offers like live chat, which is for me personally very, very important. It's kind of like, again, a preference thing, but as I said, I personally kind of like enjoy and treat it as a pro. Of course, there are some cons. It's a Euro site, so for example, if you're kind of like Canadian that plays like in the evening, well, you're typically not going to be find a lot of action. Um, the tables are really going down during the night because people are mostly going to sleep, so it's kind of like understandable. And there's another con which I think mostly refers rather to like low stakes and maybe mid stakes, and this is the fact that the network is losing a bit of traffic. The reason is that two of the main skins, which were in the early days pre-active, Unibet and Ledbrokes, have moved away. Unibet creating his own skin, his own network, to be precise, and Ledbrokes joining, as far as I can recall, iPoker. So with these two very important sites going away, there was a lot of people, a lot of players who just moved on and get away from the network, and the network is not really showing an increase in the number of players. But as I said, it's not something that you should, as an NL20 or NL10 or a full player, should be concerned, because for you there's like a lot of action. So, guys, first of all, before we get into the actual action, I would like to congratulate BBC community member Klafuterik, if I said it correctly. If not, please apologize. Once again, thanks for taking part, and if you want one day be taking part as well in some coachings of this type with me, just join the BBC community, stay active in the forums, and you're gonna see. Anyway, let's just see the footage, and then I will kind of like comment what I find interesting, and um, if there's going to be like any like spot where I think I should discuss a bit more. I think I will stop the footage, and we're then gonna like discuss it a bit more. Anyway, I'm really not kind of used to this software, this new software that kind of like the Microgaming network implemented. Here with Jax, it's going to be interesting. I think it should be a pretty standard squeeze. So I think overcalling in this spot is a little bit like too weak. There's a lot of dead money in, and I think the hand works very, very well as a squeeze. So like that's the first thing. I think it's a little bit like too passive, because you're pretty much with this line saying, okay, I'm just going for like set mining, and it's now going to be different. If I'm playing like that, I think I'm definitely donking this texture. I kind of like don't really know. Um, and now, and again, now raising is going to be a little bit like tough. I mean, min raising is I think something. I mean, check min raise here is fine, like, but you have to kind of fold if he goes ahead and three bets here, because I think it's a raise fold spot if you're playing this way, because your equity against the stack of range here is going to be really bad. I mean, if you would have like pocket nines, I would say like fine, but this way, as I said, the conclusion I think is like a little bit too passive. I think there's a lot of money to be made, and so I believe it check raise is probably the best. I like the min steal with ace 8 off, and as the min 3 bet I find also kind of like okayish with pocket eights. I mean, 3 betting I think is fine. As long as you know how to proceed post flop, because you have to be aware that pocket eights. There's I think a pretty good board for pocket eights, of course. The queen deuce, it's one of the better. But again, I think it's important to be disciplined, and in the case someone did raises there, you just have to get out. I mean, bet calling is typically going to be a little bit like too optimistic. Other than that, I think if you go ahead and 3 bet pocket eights, aside from like called calling, which on this stakes out of the small blind works, in my opinion, fairly well still. I think you should be doing it like you should be doing it a little bit like larger. This way, it's like you're getting him really good odds. You're kind of like trying to keep his calling range wide, and then to like see bet flop, which is not necessarily a bad strategy, but it's definitely something interesting. Let's see if we're going to open ace 8 off on the cutoff here. No, he decides to fold. I think it's definitely a hand fine to open on the cutoff, because I think the button is like pretty tight up till now, so I believe that it would be very nice to kind of go ahead and just open it and try to win the pot pre-flop. I like the call with 8-9 suited. I think it can be go ahead fine as a 3-bet, but I believe calling is as well pretty nice in this spot. Once he checks, I think hero should almost always go ahead and make like a half pot $12 bet or 12-cent bet, because and jack 8 off, I think it's a fine fold, kind of like versus a short stacker and someone who seems to be fairly tight with like I think 1914 and probably VPI PPFR. So I guess folding is probably the best play in that spot. So with knight 8, I think we got the pot down, which is nice. I think if the player would have called in that spot, I think I would have bet as well the turn on most turn cards. I would have bet once again. So I think the hand is played fine. Queen 9 off could be a defend, and doesn't have to. I mean, on this stakes, generally speaking, these kind of loose defense are okayish. So here's probably gonna fold again, ace 8 off, which is fine. Seems like hero is playing. Okay, there's like on every table you have different stats of yourself. Okay. As I said, the 8-9 hand, I think it's a bet again on the turn if you kind of like check calls for like you're kind of like buying for half pots. I see that you're buying yourself a free showdown here. I think checking down pocket trees is okay. I mean, so, and you might be good. Action seems to be pretty passive. Nobody bets an ace 10 or an ace queen, so you just get to realize your equity very, very easily in this spot. So, I believe very nice play from hero that he did not bet. I personally like, because if you bet, you're kind of like betting to fold their share of equity, which is okay, but you rather want to do a hand that may call, may still be like second pair on the Rakeback, for example, an 8. If you would have bet, I would have liked personally more than with pocket trees. That is hardly going to improve generally. Let's see if we get any more interesting spots. Here, Ro decides to fold a6 off, which I believe is correct. I think a6 suited would be a fine 3-bet bluff, but a6 off is a little bit like too weak, because this kind of like off-suited ace, they have very bad playability, and hero decides to make in the spot a very loose steal on the button. And let's see, I think since he did it for like probably out of profit, he should not be continuing, even the board is kind of like really dry. But it seems that hero probably knows the opponent, or maybe has some particular reason why he kind of continued. I believe he could even take it on the turn if the guy would have checked again on the turn. I think it would have worked very, very well. So hero decides to go ahead and 3-bet. I think hero's 3-bet size, from what I saw up till now, are a little bit like too small. He should be aiming to go for a larger size when he's 3-betting, because he's typically giving way too good odds. And now, of course, once he gets 4-betted, he just has to go away. There's like no other thing. But I kind of noticed he's like making 2.5x 3-bets, which I think shouldn't be really used unless you're in position. I think out of position you do want to kind of like make the price kind of higher because you are going to play out of position, and because of that, it's going to be a little bit tougher unless like the opponent is like folding on the flop 60, so you can bet any two. But then you can again you kind of have to stick. I like the steal with queen 3 suited, but think it's time now that we do give up. We don't c-bet this board. We can maybe try with a light c-bet, but this one not. So like a check, and here with a6, I think it's fine to bet half pot. You kind of have the backdoor, a flush draw, which you can continue. Um, the guy seems to have to be honest. I don't think you should be checking here. I think you should be continuing, trying to fold out maybe pocket deuces, pocket threes, ace eight. I mean, you have to be aware that from the ace eight you're actually going to lose. So again, here you should be betting the turn. You hit a flush draw, so you should be almost always betting. I think Hero's line is a little bit like too passive. This guy probably paid the blind, so ace-3, I think I would have ISO raised because the guy has probably a 100% range, which paid the blind, and of course now this one goes ahead, and as you can see he even folded it, but he got probably a very nice price to call there. But he obviously had a 100%, so he probably had ace deuce 3 off, and probably did not realize that it was a okayish spot to just but I don't know if Mantrab, the guy left to Hero, did realize that actually had a hand. That's like kind of the interesting thing. But as I said, I think Hero should be opening their ace-3 suited almost always with kind of like somebody posts the blind. He just has a 100% range. He has any two, or you want to call it any two. And because of that, I do believe that going ahead with ace-3 and sort of like ISO raising, call it whatever you want, is probably the best line. 8-6 suited, I think it's fine to fold on these stakes because it's like a marginal hand where you're not gonna probably make a lot of money by playing, and so just folding it is probably fine because, as I said, on the micros the rake is the highest, so even if you like make in a vacuum like 1 B or 2 BB with the hand, probably after the Rakeback you're gonna be losing with that particular hand. So as I said, kind of like playing tight on the micros is like typically a very good strategy, and probably why the lags do not realize that the lags on the micros are frequently just going. You kind of have to know when you can like put on pressure, and when you can sort of like when to be laggy, when to be taggy, or call it whatever you wanted. It's like still something that um, is like kind of like a skill, I would say. So generally speaking, when people ask me what kind of approach should you use on the micros, I always kind of advise tied because it just works fairly well. First of all, because people still pay you off, and secondly, because of the rake that is pretty high. Let's see with 4-5. I think the fold is probably the best line. Sorry, it's probably the best line. Would have been interesting to see if Hero would have squeezed, which I think would be too loose for these stakes unless these people like fold to 3 bets a very high amount. I think then using 4-5 suited to have like almost to an auto profit spot would have been cool. Definitely probably a good spot because people do not continue that light, and I think on the micros generally people do tend to fold a lot to 3 bets, which I don't think is necessarily wrong. It's just that it's good if you know how to abuse that to a certain degree, of course. Okay, let's see if we gonna actually get into some stealing spots. Ace-5 off is going to still be a fold, which I personally believe is okay. As I said, what I like about table 3, which is the left down, is the fact that the table is kind of like showing to be very. The button is showing to be Dr. Goldman. Seems to be like very tight. So I believe that trying to widen up your cutoff range is probably a decent solution, unless the blinds do not give you like a huge headache, but they don't seem to. So I guess should be okay to do so. Let's see if we get the chance to if he's going to open Queen 5 off on the small blind, if it's folded to him. Would be interesting because I believe in that spot. That Mantrab, whatever his name, he seems to be like a rather loser opponent. Seems to be like deflating a lot, so I guess I wouldn't be really opening. I would probably have been folded right away because he's not tied or like solid. He just likes to see flops, so I guess you're probably not going to auto profit with the steal, and Queen 5 post flop doesn't play like very well. Looks like we do not have up till now too much action, but let's hope things get better. 8-5 suited, it's going to be interesting, and I mean because bluff bets went ahead and another guy flatted. I think overcalling is not bad. Squeezing, if I mean probably on this Zaharoleg guy we don't have any samples, so squeezing might look tempting against two guys who are folding a lot. I mean, if there was be like a super weak player, I guess overcalling would also be fine. It's like kind of a hand probably against the regular. You're not really going to make a lot of money, but if there's like a weak player you have an edge against, you're probably going to be in the long run showing profit. So we continue the stealing the small blind with the min raise, which I do like. Let's see if we're gonna continue. Pocket fives were folding under the gun. No, after somebody open raised, which I kind of like personally. I'm not a huge fan of flatting this small pocket pairs, MP versus under the gun, the super small, because you very easily get into set over set situation. I mean, they're like not very common, and probably on NL4 it works still fairly good to a certain degree, because you just can almost always rely that people are not going to be folding their overpairs. For example, if the board comes like 9, 7, 5 and you raise, people are just most of the time not going to be folding their overpairs, and so I believe that that flatting on this really micro stakes is actually still very profitable. On higher stakes it probably would not. Bluff bet did an open raise, and here I decided to 3-bet with ace jack suited, which I think is a K-ish line. I think ace jack plays fairly well. I personally would have liked more a call, because the hero seems to be folding somewhat to 3-bets, so because of that I do kind of like more to call there, but as I said, I don't think I can do a lot wrong either by 3-betting. Hero decides to c-bet, kind of like half podish, which I personally do not like. I think it's a standard size, like 2/3, 3/4 pot, because, and of course, if anybody raises here, I'm out of the hand almost always. On this kind of texture, there's like not a whole lot you can do, and so the guy paid, and he would probably as well have paid like 25, and check on the turn I think is not good. I think it's again a bet on the turn. and bet on the river. I mean, he has to bet the river. Almost always he has to bet the turn and he has to bet the river. I mean, the fact is that on these kind of spots, you get most of your value. Um, because people just play their draws passively. They do not realize that this texture, if you check raise, you generate a lot of fold equity, and they just play passively with his ace jack. He did not even bluff river, which I don't think is super bad, but I don't think it's awesome either. So as I said, uh, we're calling pre-flop with kings, which personally I do not like. I think it's a standard 3-bet for whatever reason. Hero decided here to flat, and now it's going to be interesting. I think you cannot shove it. I think you should be shoving here, just 4-bet shove, because he's squeezing range unless he's squeezing really wide. Your hand is under rep, then most people might read it as a pocket pair, and so. But if you play it like this, I think you have to have the courage here to lay the hand down. Because, I mean, now you're going to be calling this bet. I mean, let's see. He decides to fold, which I think is okay. Because people are never going to lay down an ace. Even, for example, if like a third club comes in, kind of like donk, people are just never going to lay down. The fact is that I think if you're going to play it pre-flop, your hand is so disguised that a shove, he would instantly probably call with, let's say, jacks. Or most of the time, he wouldn't probably snap to it because like maybe it was like 120. But people are just not known for, like, I think in min race you should be defending 10-9 off. Against the min race, that is where I was. Yeah, I was saying that if you're gonna play the hand like that, you just have to push, and so I believe Hero did not a good thing by calling. Because his hand simply is disguised, and people tend to hero call way more if you play like that. And here is going to be interesting. I mean, no, please don't donk. No, that was wrong, because you're pretty much turning your hand into bluff. I think your hand is just a bluff catcher, and I think turning your hand into bluff is just not good, because you're never gonna get them to fold anything worse, anything better. So if he calls, you're almost always behind, but actually Hero was lucky and catched up on the river. Okay guys, time to wrap up this video. What we've seen is that the games are extremely passive. I mean, I think we can count, I mean I can count on my fingers, and you probably as well, how many 3-bets. I think we saw just one squeeze, and I think maybe 3 or 4 3-bets. So the games are extremely passive. I think we did not see a lot of check raises, triple barrels, and so on. So as I said, the games are typically fairly passive, and I have to say, it's on certain degree, I was surprised as well. I think on the Hive network they were a bit of more aggressive, maybe for whatever reason, but it seemed like the population tendency on the microgaming on L4 seems to be extremely passive. Of course, it might be a sample size, like just my first opinion on a really small sample of hands, but typically, as I said, they seem to be like fairly passive, which is understandable. I mean, these are recreational players that play poker for fun and just have their fun at the tables, which I think is cool. What I do want to point out is that you should not forget to make 10 value plays. I mean, aside from, I think Hero in one hand had King 10, and he did not bet the turn, he did not bet the river, which I personally think is not good. I think Hero should be aiming. And I think since the games are so passive, you can just bet, and if somebody shows aggression, raises, you can just go away and let their like top pair, good kicker, you can just let it go. So in that spot, I think you should just go bet, and if somebody raises you, okay. And you have to understand that in these stakes, be making rather bigger 10 value plays than less 10 value plays is typically the better way to go. And I think once again, straightforward play aside from my like suggestions where you could potentially squeeze like some low suited connectors or like one gappers or whatever, I think straightforward plays, this is simply just the most rewarded play. You just have top pair and bet. I don't know, you just have a drop, bet big, and it's just the way to go. If you hit, you're just gonna get paid, and that's why it's called as well the micros, and especially this lowest micros. But I think what is pretty important, and I want to thank praise to Hero definitely, is that he once went pretty tricky with his pocket kings, which I didn't think was very good, but doesn't matter. What matters is that post flop he was disciplined enough to let the hand go, which I think is very a lot of people in these takes have the problems that they attach themselves to the hand. They have kings. They think they probably think, oh, I'm gonna get the money. But the fact is that if the situation doesn't really come out very good, you should just be able to let the hand go. And that's why I think Hero made a tricky play, but played it good post flop and saved himself a lot of money with a disciplined fold. Anyway, that was it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed. I can just announce for the end that the next episode is going to be a live play episode, and we're going to be again in the Microgaming Network playing NL10 with another BPC member, which I'm going to be live sweating. So stay tuned. Thanks for watching. This was Hans the Great for bestpokercoaching.com. Good luck at the tables, and see you in the next video. Bye bye.